Hi everyone, my name is Chantal, and this is my first ever solo edition video of my new series, Violet's Film Journal, and today we're going to be talking about a film that I am very excited to talk about, and that is the new film that is written and directed by Aki Kaurismäki, and the name of it is Fallen Leaves. So yeah, let's just get into it. If I will be looking down and reading these notes that I made in my notes app on my iPhone 10 minutes ago, and so if I looked out or if I'm just contemplating what to say, just know I'm reading notes. And so let's get into it. So, like I mentioned, this film is written and directed by Aki Kaurismäki, and this is actually my first film I've seen from him, so I can't compare it to any of his other works. He's made many other popular works, but part of why I also mention that is because this film is a part of a series of films he has made called the Proletariat series. Hello, I'm quickly already interrupting the video just to fix the fact that I said the word, it was pronounced like proletariat. It's actually proletariat. I can't speak words. And just going based off of this film and just the other films that I've read about and just like the meaning of that word in general, I am really, really interested in checking out those other works of his, just because going into this film, just like knowing what it was like about and like what the emotions are gonna like encompass and just like the feeling of like the interpersonal connection that the film I was hoping gave me, and it did give me. I am really interested in checking out his other works now. I'm very impressed by just how well that he captures just like the feeling of like works like that. Because, it deals with like, the working class a lot and just like hopelessness and just like such like stern environments. And I really can tell just from like this one work that he is somebody that can capture just like the sadness, but also like the gentle sometimes optimism and just hope, like the desperate like hope that people have holding on like very well. Some other fun little notes about this film is this film won the jury prize at this year's Cannes Film Festival, which is really, really cool. And this is the finished entry for the Academy Awards this year. I personally don't really care that much about the Academy Awards. I care about Cannes. I definitely care about Cannes, but the Academy Awards, like, you can take it or leave it, but still, like, that's pretty cool. It made the shortlist, so I just wanted to give that a shout out. So to get into a little bit of what the film is about and some plot details in case people have not heard this film or they're watching this, like, just out of curiosity. So I am reading this, paraphrasing it based off the plot that I read from letterboxd.com. And so just bear with me in terms of paraphrasing it. I literally cannot speak. The film follows two main characters, one a woman named Ansa and then a man named Halapa. And Ansa is a supermarket worker, and one thing about it too is she's on like a 0-hour contract, which if I understand correctly how it works is like you basically don't have to make like a minimum amount of like hours worked really, and so like you're just on like a 0-hour contract. There's no hours that need to be met by like your employer, so your income and everything else is always up in the air, and obviously like that's terrifying, and the fact that people go through this in real life is terrible. And so like I was saying before, just like seeing Aki Kaurismäki just tackle subjects like that is so hard to capture, just how crushing and just how hopeless and bleak a situation like that is, because as much as like you try so hard to make your environment work, so much of it is out of your control. And that's also a theme throughout a lot of this film that I'll get to soon. I just really just find concepts like that, as tough as they are and as sad as they are, just so like, for me, just like there's something about that like grabs me. And then you have the character Halapa, who is also just struggling with jobs and also is dealing with alcoholism and just a lot of like, just like identity issues, and both the characters are. Before I even get to how like the characters like come together and how like they contrast each other, one thing I have to say is I really find films like this that deal with subject matters like this so like fascinating and can be so emotional and just really resonate with people, like even myself, even though I live in like very different circumstances, definitely. And the thing I like about it is that like, the films like this, like they represent so many different kinds of people, and even if you can't like just fully like relate to like one or the other, it's really just like the feeling at the end of the day that really like matters, I feel like. And yeah, no, I just really appreciate just like these two different like characters. And so when they come together, the contrast of it and the emotional exploration is so profound. So to finally also just say, because I just started talking about my thoughts on the movie without actually saying what my basic thoughts are on the movie. I'm getting used to doing this again. I apologize. But to just get my like base opinion out of the way, this movie is really good. And there's a lot that I have to say about it, the stuff, like more stuff that I hadn't just said. So let's get into that. So, like I already touched upon, this film deals with a lot of themes that are about like emotions that, as poignant as they are and as how well explored as they are in this film, a lot of the emotions you can't really like put into words. Just that feeling of just hopelessness and bleakness and living in such like a stern sort of like state, and just, you know, economic issues and just how like consuming it can be. And just the fact that like there's just things in your life that are like out of your control and holding you back from just like being like happy and stuff like that. And to get more like specific about it, like mild spoilers for the film, but like this film deals with like very, very serious and, you know, for a lot of people, like issues of like, you know, just having like food to have, or like, you know, issues of like getting food, or like the accessibility to it, like fundamental parts of the human life that like should be readily available, but because of the circumstances these characters are in and just how bleak of a world that they're in and the environment they're in, like that's a struggle for them. And that I think is just like, it's obviously it's like, you know, disturbing and really sad, and but the way that like it comes together in terms of like the narrative is like, I don't know how like to really like describe it. It just like, it's such like a hopeless environment, this movie. And the movie, like, as much as like, I don't want to get into too much in terms of like how the romance sort of like tragedy comedy thing comes into play, but there's just such like a feeling about how it intertwines with like just the rest of the movie, and how it just doesn't give up on this just like relentless just like sadness that just like it creates a feeling that like is really, really hard to put into words. And honestly, those are some like my favorite movies, like movies that just leave you with senses and like, you know, like sensibilities and just like feelings that like you really cannot like put like your exact finger on, because a lot of the strongest emotions we experience in life, we cannot describe them properly. And to a degree, I think that's like a pretty like beautiful thing, but also it's like a frustrating thing. And this movie actually, I think, explores both sides of that equation. One thing too about it that I really, really admire is it deals with all these like emotional, obviously like very, very like challenging themes, but also one thing I love about this movie is it doesn't like flash its emotions, if that's a proper way to describe that. It doesn't just like blatantly like force it at you. Like there's nothing wrong with filmmaking like that, but the kind of filmmaking I resonate with the most is one where it just simply just kind of like shows what's happening, and then very subtly will like show its themes for like how this movie does like music and like lyrics and like karaoke stuff. And I love stuff like that. Like my favorite film of all time, which I'll talk about this film actually again in a second, my favorite film of all time is Dayvan. And I love that movie so much. Part of why I love that movie so much, this is only part of it, is that movie just shows just like the actions and like just like the environments and just like the conflicts that like, you know, Dayvan, you know, mainly is in. And so this movie is similar to that, where it's just like showcasing just like the everyday life, and through watching it, and this movie is a little more like I don't want to say like on the nose, I don't think that's a good word to use, but it definitely like makes it more apparent, I would say, a little more like accessible, just like in terms of like as an audience member, what's exactly happening. But still, it has like that same similar feel of just watching it and just like experiencing the moments these characters are the same way that they are, and processing it like the same way they are, and like processing in your own experience, like that like personal connection that the viewer's having to the movie. I love stuff like that, and I think this movie does a really good job at doing that. And quickly to get this out of the way, because there's a few films that I want to compare this to, just in terms of like what it reminded me of. I think the one that it reminded me the most of is, I would say, like, you know, one that people will go to, and this one obviously I'm comparing it to, but like In the Mood for Love, for example. Obviously it's a bit different in terms of like how the story begins and like what happens, but I do definitely feel like that's a good comparison, just because again, it's like this, like it's like a romance sort of story. I mean, In the Mood for Love is a romance story. This is too. I don't know what I'm saying, but like it's like a romance story. But like it deals with such like grief and just like loss, and just like this like no emotion in life is as beautiful and also terrifying as the longing for like the deepest connection you can have with a human. And that movie explores that super well, and this movie does too. But honestly, the movie that I feel like, the film that I want to compare it to the most is Ali Fear Eats the Soul. The reason why I say that is because the editing of this movie, the way it's shot, the color timing, the acting style is so similar to that movie, in my opinion. There was just so much just like qualities and aesthetics that I took like from this movie that reminded me so much of Ali Fear It's the Soul. And Ali Fear It's the Soul, I think, is like a masterpiece. And just seeing how a movie that I love so much, obviously it's a classic movie, like Fassbinder's films are extremely influential for many reasons, but just seeing like a film that I love that much so clearly influence a film like this, I was in such a brilliant way too. I was like, wow, that is like awesome. Because like one thing I'll just jump to quickly, like what I'm saying in terms of like how it inspires it, it's not just like the settings and stuff like that with like, you know, Ali Fears the Soul has like the restaurant area a lot of the time, like the bar area. This one has like the karaoke area a lot, and where a lot of like those beginnings of ideas and like character explorations and like vulnerabilities are showcased for like the very first time. But it's also just like the aesthetics of it, like I said. Like one thing that stuck out to me so much in this movie, and let me just pull out my notes quickly, if people do not mind. The cinematography by Timo Salmonin. I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong. But the cinematography by him is like, it was like so like it reminded me so much of like movies from like the 60s and 70s that had a very like specific, like warm, like but like vividy sort of like I would say actually like a warm sort of like vibrant sort of look, but had like a very like fine like grain structure, but also the cinematography style was very like stagnant sort of focused, like in terms of like camera moves and camera placements. And this movie does basically exactly that, like a movie like Ali Fears the Soul does. And I was watching it and I saw it in theaters, and like I just was like, this is like gorgeous. It looks so pretty. The color timing in this movie is so good. It is so good in my opinion. It just looks beautiful, and again it has this like warm sort of like look to it, and like so the colors look so like real, but they're so like vibrant and pretty, and you have like that like sort of like fine sort of like look to the image overall. It looks stunning. And just one more comparison to make to like a film like Ali Fear It's the Soul is just like the emotions that film covers and the way that it decides to cover it, I think is very similar to this movie. Just dealing with like a romance situation that is filled with just constant just like sadness and grief, and like just like there's so many things that are out of your control, and this film also covers that. Like obviously like the ways they're exploring it are two different sort of like you know contexts obviously, but still I just think that like that comparison for me is the best way I can really like describe just like how the influences and the aesthetics of this movie resonated with me so much. Like again, just to point out, and I already know I started making this point, so I apologize for repeating it, but like the movie is just very like subtle with its emotions, but like it's very like if you soak it all in, it becomes so clear what the movie's trying to do, and I love movies like that. And I love it, you know, too, and I'm really was impressed by it too, is like the way it does blatantly showcase like what it's really going for with like the music and the lyrics. I thought was really, really good. And I just really loved, like, when you get more of these, like, vulnerable character moments, like, the contrast of what you learn about these characters' different interactions. Like, the two main characters, like, they have interactions with certain kinds of people and, like, their friends or, like, coworkers. And you see different sides of them. But then when you put the two main characters together, they become their most, like, vulnerable place. Obviously, like, you know, it's, like, a romance sort of, like, interest thing. So, obviously, you're in a more, like, vulnerable place and you show more of yourself, like, naturally that you don't show others. It's just that the way that it decides to showcase those ideas and the specific moments and the specific lines of dialogue that it hones in on, and just like the strikeness and sort of like the profoundness and like, you know, I used to sort of love it, like the sternness of words and just like how like characters react to like what this character is saying with this and how they're internalizing it, and also how it impacts their own like, I guess, like trauma processing and how they're like going about like situations with like what's triggering them to like respond to situations in a very like specific way. It was so like just sad and like overwhelming, but in a cinematic way, it was just brilliant. One other thing too that I would love to point out is this movie is only like 81 minutes long, I believe, and I have nothing against like short movies. I actually like a lot of short movies, but like Ali Fears is like a short movie, for example. I am so impressed though by how much this movie tackles, because this movie is dealing with a lot of very complex themes, like all the stuff that I mentioned before, like alcoholism, just like existential stuff, like grief and stuff like that. But it's also dealing with like war conflicts. It's dealing with like even like discrimination to an extent. It's tackling all of these themes, and it comes together and like an 80-minute runtime with the romance stuff and like that emotional, vulnerable connection that is an audience member. I cannot speak. As an audience member that you have to that situation, or just seeing it all unfold, it comes together in a way in 80 minutes that is so impressive. You can tell that this script was like as tight as it could be and no filler at all, and it just went for it. And I think that's part of why the tone feels so just like consuming, and just like so many things keep happening and happening, even though it's like intertwined with like this hopeful like romance situation, this hopeful like connection between humans. What makes it so brilliant is that like it still is able to execute just like that like sad, just like underlining like just like dread you have, and just like tension you have, and mixed like, so when you have that together, like mixed, it's so constant, mixed with like the romance that's sort of like trying to figure each other out and sort of like rocky at points, it comes together, and it's tonally wise and directing wise and just writing wise also, it is brilliant. And absolutely no spoilers, but the way that this film concludes, I think is like basically perfect. I think it's really, really good. And it leaves you, the viewer, I think, with like the perfect sort of like feel of that movie, like the way the themes that it's tackling, and the feeling that it's trying to like provide the viewer, like what the viewer is trying to get from it. I think the ending of it, and just also like what it's sort of like paying like tribute to also in a way, I won't get into too much about what I mean by that. It is just such like a like it's just such a good ending. I don't want to say more on that because I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but the ending and just how it all comes together, like all the themes I talked about, how it all comes together at the end, because the ending is like the most important part in my opinion. It comes together so well, and I was just so impressed. Some other things I also want to point out quickly is the acting in this movie, like I mentioned, like comparing to Ali Fear's Soul, it's just sort of like this very like somber sort of style of acting where like emotions can get kind of like murky in a way, but just like still so like striking and so like direct with the audience and like with the all this stuff, like it is really, really good. And yeah, no, just say one more time, just the themes that this movie covers and just the feeling it like gave me really like connects with me. Like again, just kind of reference it one more time, like it's similar to like June Daman in a sense, where like it's a movie about like longing and just feeling just so like a feeling of just like nothingness and numbness to just like the environment that you're being like boxed into, and just like I don't know, like that movie is my favorite movie, but like just comparing it to like this, like in this movie too, like it's a feeling that like I can't even like describe. It's a level of just like numbness and just like letting go in a way that like is so just sad, and but it's powerful stuff, and just how it all comes together I thought was really, really good. One more thing I want to say about this movie before I wrap this up is, I guess a very like it's a little bit of a spoiler, but I just want to say it. There is a dog in this movie, and the dog is like the cutest dog I have ever seen in a movie. It is like the most adorable dog I have ever seen in a movie. I just want to say that quickly, because I was like, that's a cute dog. So this movie, it has a lot of stuff going on in it, but it also has a cute dog, in a few scenes. So shout out to the cute dog. And with that, I think I will wrap it up, just because I feel like if I kept going, I'd just ramble and like repeat words I'm saying and stuff like that. But yeah, no, so those are my little rambly thoughts on Fallen Leaves. I really like this movie. I very much recommend it. I know Mubi is distributing this in the States. I think they might be doing this in the United, they're probably doing the United Kingdom too, I would assume. So if you have a chance to go see this in theaters or wait to watch it on Mubi, I very much recommend it. And so yeah, so to anyone who's watched this or watched any, just in general, watch any of my content, thank you so much. Again, I'm trying to get better at doing these. These will probably be pretty messy, these film videos, for a little bit. Maybe forever. We'll have to wait and see. But, no, I mean, probably messy forever. But anyways, I digress. I'm still trying to get, like, the hang of it all, and so thank you to anyone who's bearing with me. And yeah, and so that is that. Again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all again for more videos soon. Alrighty, thank you guys, bye.